apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
I
Let
thought
me
it
read
was
off.
at 10 today. So.
That's okay. Let me read off this item and then we'll turn it over to you. Item number 4 is Major Ernie Cook, Sheriff's Office, authorization for county judge to sign the SAVNS maintenance grant contract with the Office of the Attorney General for statewide automated victim notification services. Now, I've already notified them, this is just an annual renewal of the VINE system, but I know you had something you wanted to say about it, or at least answer any questions that anybody may have.
Well, this is the same agreement that we've had for many years. As you know, that by law, we're supposed to notify the victims of whenever they're accused actors or released from jail. And that's what this program does. It's the VINE program. Victim information notification every day. Y'all have.
Judge sign it.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Pelt and a second by Commissioner Cooper. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Major
Thank
Cook.
y'all very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Item number 6, budget workshop to discuss fiscal year 2016 proposed budget. I think everybody has a packet that the auditor presented us with this morning, right before court. And this time, I think I'll just turn it over to Angela and let her explain what the information is here.
Okay. In your package, you will see an updated Fund 17, which is Road and Bridge, Fund 10, which is General Fund, and Fund 53, which is your jury fund. After the, and also in your packet, there's a brief list of some of the proposed changes that have been made, some of the changes that have been made to the proposed budget. I will provide a detailed list at the next meeting. But some of the changes that you will see in these reports are, we added the 2% salary increases plus the fringes. We added some salary adjustments for various departments. We added $20,222 for the health department hazard match. I was just informed before I came into this meeting by Laura that she's the one that put that in, and she said that she's looking at it now. We may need to take that back out because we're doing the health department different this year. So I will.
So the $20,222 may be adjusted again?
That is correct. So I
Okay.
will notify the court as soon as I have that information.
Okay.
And we lowered the dispatcher's match by $708. That's because we had originally calculated their
I'm
hours.
sorry, what page are you
I'm
on?
sorry, it's the
It's the
very
very
last
last one.
page in your,
Give me a minute.
it looks like
No,
this.
sir, it's this one. It's the last page behind everything.
Should be the very, yeah. It's just a single page that was,
Look behind all your printouts of the budget. I think there's a single sheet at the very back.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. All right, thank you.
That's okay, I just found it myself.
we lowered the dispatcher's match because we were calculating the hours based on the hours that the dispatchers work in the sheriff's office. And the ones that the entities help pay for, they only work 2,080 hours. We increased the unemployment insurance $17,500. It was originally last year $20,000. It was reduced. We needed to increase it back up to $20,000. We added the DA match, the $33,462. We added health department CPS match at $38,63. We added $25,000 to our utilities, and we increased the district judge supplement by $3,000 each. The state allowed the district judges supplement to, instead of being
Yep.
and then they increased it a couple of years ago, but we haven't increased it in our county, so we increased it from $15,000 to $18,000, which gives an additional $3,000 to each district judge. And we reduced our pauper attorney adult felony by $6,000. And then we removed, I didn't include it on this list, but we removed the deputy from the sheriff's department that we had previously discussed. So those are some of the changes that have been made to the proposed budget that you have in your packet. They have all been updated. And so now if we'll turn to the page that says recap at the top, that's paper clip several.
Real
I'm
quick,
I
sorry.
have a
Angela.
couple of questions
Okay.
before we move on.
Go ahead,
First off, on the added VAWA match of $33,462, was that not already in the DA's budget?
That was added to our commissioner's court line item. It's the match to the county. That's another one that Laura added for us, and she is looking into that one. We have always put it in Commissioner's Court, so we'll look at that as well.
So,
All these matches is something that's been recently added.
okay, so she's looking at it, what does that mean? That it may come out?
Yes, sir, and I will notify y'all. But it is included in these reports that I'm giving you today.
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry.
Just one more item real quick on the added $25,000 to utilities. The auditor called me yesterday afternoon and advised me that we've gone over in our utilities line item in the current budget by $46,000, and that there's no way the amount we budgeted for next year would cover. So I asked her to add $25,000 to that line item to try to cover it. We're gonna do our best to cut down on utilities next year, and we're gonna do some things that should hopefully cut the utilities down some, we hope. But that's where the additional $25,000 came from in utilities. I asked her to add that in yesterday. And as far as Laura's working on these other items, will she have that answer this afternoon, do you
Yes, sir.
think? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Commissioner?
On, the increased unemployment insurance, is that an increase of 17,500?
In the previous years, we've had 20,000 in that line item. It's also in the Commissioner's Court budget. It was reduced to 2,500, and it needs to go back up to 20,000.
And let me address that as well. Whenever I was working on the Commissioner's Court budget and I was making all those cuts y'all were happy about, there was halfway through the year, there was only a small amount charged to that line item. I thought that was because there was an employee that had been paid out of there at one time that was no longer being paid. So I set that amount at 2,500, but it is an amount that we pay towards the end of each budget year, and it's around $20,000. So that's why that 17,500's got to go back in there. That's an error on my part.
Doesn't the rate vary due to our status? In other words, if we don't lose any cases, we go to a lower rate for a certain, I mean, it varies.
Unemployment,
doesn't
it does
stay the
vary.
same.
And this is the line item that, it is estimated based on prior year's wages, and so then when they, add up the wages and then it's paid, this is the balance that's usually left owing that we get a bill at the end of the year.
And you might have went over it, I might have not been listening on the 20,222 for the health department. What is that?
That is, the health department match, that's the county match, but Laura informed me before I came in that will be included. This year, we have a separate budget for the health department that the county pays, and so that amount should be in that budget, but she's checking.
Should be included in that budget
In the
instead
past,
of us
we
paying it
all-
out of Commissioner's Court.
That's correct.
So
In the
we're gonna
past, we
double check
paid
that.
it in Commissioner's Court, and she just added it back into Commissioner's Court, and then she realized that it may not should be there, so we're gonna check on that.
Okay, on the increased unemployment insurance, is there any way that we can figure out what departments they are and increase those line items in that?
Okay, and not put it in this line item?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it matters.
Be difficult to do it this year, but I think we could keep a better eye on it next year so that we know how to divvy it up better.
I agree.
Do you agree with that? I think it has to do with people coming and going. It's just hard to,
Keep it up. Well, that might be the best solution. I mean, really.
anything else, Angela, before you move on? All right. What page should we have now?
On a recap,
Okay.
it's the, reports that are paper clipped together.
Okay.
If you look at each individual report that is attached, that are stapled, you'll see your general fund needs $394,836 to balance. Your road and bridge needs $44,614, and your jury fund, by reducing the pauper, attorney line item, and then we had a 2% increase on the bailiff that's coded there. There's $56.89 that can come out of the jury fund to help offset some of these other budgets. And so, there's $433,761 needed to balance the 2015-16 budget when you add all those together. Now, there's the funds available for road and bridge fund balance to transfer to the general fund balance of $252,440. So the amount needed from the general fund to balance is $181,321. Previously, the contingency or the fund balance that was given to the court was $3 million. Let me get that real quick. Was $3,817,010 is what we should start our contingency fund with. It was off of our audit report. That included our accruals. It was the gap basis in our audit report. We should have used the budgetary basis in the back of the audit report, and that amount is $4,453,567. So that's the next line item. It's $4,453,567 is your audit report beginning general fund as of September the 30th, 2014.
And that is the beginning surplus amount that we should start with.
Correct.
Okay.
And so then our estimated revenue collected was $14,439,465. So the total available is $18,893,032. Then less our estimated expenditures is $14,831,401.25. Our budget amendments was $138,794. So our estimated ending general fund balance is $3,922,836.75. The funds available from the road and bridge fund balance to transfer to the general fund is $252,440. So our estimated ending general fund balance is $4,175,276.75. And the amount needed to balance the 2015-16 budget is $433,761. So your estimated beginning fund balance for the 15-16 year is $3,741,515.75. And then I discussed the road and bridge fund balance we had talked about before, that we had also used $1,312,985, which is also the same, the gap version in the beginning. We should have used the budgetary fund balance, which is $1,394,642. That's your audit report beginning road and bridge fund balance as of September the 30th, 2014. Then you reduce that by the amount that was transferred into each various road and bridge departments, and that was $1,142,202. So that's where you get your available funds that road and bridge can transfer to the general fund of $252,440. So the general fund balance previously reported last time was the beginning fund balance for 15-16 previously reported was $3,238,425. But today, the estimated beginning fund balance for the 15-16 year is $3,741,515.75. So the difference is $503,090.75. And I made a note down at the bottom, when I previously reported the estimated beginning fund balance of $3,238,425, that was adding $170,783 from road and bridge and subtracting the $208,000 to balance the budget. But today we can transfer $252,440 from road and bridge. And I know that's a lot to absorb.
So how did we come up with the accrual of the $252,000?
The audit report shows the beginning road and bridge balance is $1,394,642, and we've transferred already $1,142,202 to the road and bridge departments, and so that leaves you a balance of $252.
So is that just accrual over a period of time, more than one budget? I mean, we missed the $252,000, but I'm trying to decide how we got to $252.
Your revenues minus your expenditures, that gives you your fund balance, and that's what's happened.
So is that just one budget year, or is that more than one budget year?
We transferred last year your balance in it, so that
Right.
should be just 1 year.
Okay.
Would you say that the difference comes from what was forecasted versus what was actual?
That's correct. Well, your difference comes from your,
Or from the
no,
audit
that's
report?
not right, yeah. It's not what's estimated, it's actually what's collected and spent, the difference between what's collected and spent. I apologize.
So this budget year coming up, we won't have a carryover,
That's, well,
except what's in our line item now for carryover.
That's
In other
correct.
words, what was in this past budget, if there was a carryover, will not be added to that line item.
yeah, that will take away your fund balance if we transfer the 242,000. So you start fresh, and so whatever your revenues versus your expenditures this year is what will give you your balance.
Okay,
And
go ahead.
if I understand it correctly, the reason in the past that the court has granted the, road and bridge, departments a carryover is because of the way it falls with our overlays, because we need that money to do it. So from now on, we won't have that carryover.
You'll have what's left in
Yeah.
your budget versus,
Whatever you don't spend at the end of this budget year, you'll still have a carryover.
yes.
But after the outside audit is done, there may be an adjustment as far as what was actually collected and actually spent. Is that explaining it right?
Yeah, if you have a carryover in your budget, that is a true carryover to your budget. This is additional funds collected over what was forecast in the road and bridge budget.
So, on the road and bridge tax, the overages on the road and bridge tax, I'm still trying to figure out how we got to the 252. Cause all of us had a fund balance assigned to us in October, or really after the
Actually,
audit
it
in
was
March.
in February.
But that's not part of this.
Right, but, so what I'm asking is, what is that?
Could it also come from taxes that are being collected that were past due and things like that? I mean,
Fees or
fees for culvert
Yeah.
sales and
if they
Any
collect more
additional
revenue
fees
than
that are
what they
collected.
forecast.
You're saying they, but you're talking about us.
Well, no, I'm talking about tax office. If we collect more revenues
then
that are
forecast.
dedicated to the road and bridge fund than what was forecast, and it doesn't go right back into our budget, it's a surplus.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
May I address the court?
Yes, sir. Mr.
To-
Hardin?
To help in this explanation, in 2014, actual audit report versus the budgeted or amended budget report, your revenues were up by $310,000 in road and bridge. And that's what triggered the basic availability of the $252,000. And unfortunately, I do not have the line item revenue to tell you which areas it pertains to. As an example, in 2013, the 80-something thousand of it had to do with licenses and permits. I mean, I can tell you, if I have all the facts, specifically what revenue line item brought in the additional revenue. So, the 252 is an accurate number based upon the audit report. Now, next year, you do not know what it's going to be because you're doing basic projections and the revenue could take a downturn. And therefore, you may have a deficit. And when you have that situation, you may have to get it from the general fund. But I also want to caution you about carryovers. There is no provision that says you can carry over your appropriation for the previous year. You have to take the assumption that an appropriation lapses and stays in that fund or goes to the general fund. But then, if you recall, we would always come in and make a budget amendment in the new fiscal year to allow you to amend your budget and then to increase your actual expenditures for that future year. The court decided they did not want that, what we call the carryover, buried in the appropriation line item in materials or whatever. So the court voted to go ahead and have a specific line item that says carryover. So do not, approach it from the standpoint that you are guaranteed a carryover. The next year's court could come in and decide not to allow that.
But as Nubbin said, and this was my concern when I saw the figures on this, quote from contingency fund is gonna be transferred to the general fund is that, as Nubbin pointed out, we often have work that we plan to do, but we just haven't spent the money. And generally, there's been two reasons. One, we kind of wait to see how the budget year goes before we go ahead and obligate and take bids on asphalting some roads. And then the second thing, with the uncertainty we've had the last few years with the drop in oil and gas revenues and the loss of interest income earned due to the federal discount rate being low, then we have held off bidding these jobs in case we need working capital here, you know, and yet still keep our contingency fund up. And as you pointed out correctly, there is no guarantee that if we have these funds left, that they can be carried over or will be carried over, except that generally the commissioners that are carrying them over are gonna vote to amend that budget and put them back in.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Now, you also have, the 252,000 is an additional revenue. And Commissioners Court has the authority to go ahead and amend the road and bridge budgets to absorb that 252. It doesn't have to be forced back into the
No,
general fund.
and we understand that, but I think it's general agreement amongst the commissioners that we have met our budgets have been met, and this is additional revenue that came in because of additional fees and license and taxes and stuff like this. And our concern is to keep this surplus or contingency, whatever you wanna call it, up above a certain amount, and so we were agreeable to put this into the general fund as a transfer. Is that pretty well right?
Yeah.
And we could use every penny of it in the road and bridge, we understand that.
Yeah, cause we made cuts not knowing it was there.
Angela, on the, first section on the recap, the 181,321,
Yes, sir.
does it play back into any of these figures below that you have? In other words, the road and bridge balance that the money that we're using out of road and bridge, 252,440, do you deduct that 181,320 from the 252?
No, the top page shows you what your general fund needs to balance in your road and bridge and your jury. So your total, if you do not transfer the road and bridge, is $433,761.
And that's those two numbers combined?
And then if that's adding all those numbers up at the top, so that's what you need to balance your budget with all your different funds combined. And then if you take the road and bridge and transfer it to your general fund, you'll only need $181,321. I was trying to show what it takes to balance the budget, and then with that available funds for your road and bridge, there's only $181,321 that needs to come out of the general fund balance you have now, because $252,440 is going to come from road and bridge, and so your fund balance will only in your general fund be hit by $181,321.
Okay, so to, balance the proposed budget, we need 433,761, and of that, we're taking 252,440 from road and bridge.
Correct,
So that leaves 181,321 that would come from the general.
correct,
We've been calling it contingency, but we're gonna call it fund balance,
correct.
If you-
181,321.
So, and then you drop down to your 503,090.75.
That's the difference.
That's a surplus.
That is the difference from what I gave you at the last budget workshop and what I'm giving you now for the ending.
See, we
And
have
that's
this
before the
one.
2% raise, and the other adjustment we're gonna address this afternoon at 1:30, or it is the 2% increase included in here?
The 2% increase is included in
Okay,
this budget.
Okay, because
In
we
all
had
these
talked about that
reports.
roughly a month ago.
I have updated all these reports to reflect the 2% increase plus the fringes. The thing we're gonna talk about later today is not calculated
So it
in any
can't
of
be, because
this.
we haven't
Yeah,
We haven't even discussed it yet.
But am I correct, if we did not put that 25440 in here, then this beginning balance would not be 3741, it would be, you'd have to take 181,000 off of that.
Well, if you do not take the 252,440, you're gonna have to take 252,440 out of that balance as well. Because I'm calculating that 3,741,515 with the 252,000 being put in there.
Okay.
So if you do not transfer your road and bridge funds, then you will have to reduce that 3.7 million by 252,000.
Thank you, Mr. Partham. Does any commissioner have anything further at this time? If not, what I'd like to recommend is that we table this item until the 1:30 meeting, so we can discuss it further after the action item on that agenda has been taken up regarding the payroll issue.
Move the table.
Have a motion by Commissioner Pelt to table item number 6 till 1:30, and a second by Commissioner Roberts. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Move adjourn.
Anybody would like to second that?
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Pelt and a second by Commissioner Roberts that we adjourn. We stand adjourned, and we'll be back in session this afternoon at 1:30.
Okay, Judge, 1:30.